Have you ever wondered why Titan limbs break so easily, why the Colossal Titan has elephant legs, and why Titans are just so hot? The answer to all of the above is physics. And plot, but mostly physics. Hi, I'm Thyme, and I love Attack on Titan. But I've always been fascinated by just how real-world science would apply to big flesh mechs the size of skyscrapers, spawning out of thin air and punching each other in the face, before returning back to thin air. Before we start with the science stuff, it's important to remember that this is all fantasy and it's not supposed to follow the rules of our universe to a T. Small disclaimer before we start, this video will contain minor spoilers for up to the end of Season 4 Part 2 or Chapter 130 for the manga. Here we go. I assume you more or less know the story of Attack on Titan. Even if you don't, you'd know it involves Titans, which are mostly just supersized humans, often with less self-awareness, or in the case of a Titan shifter, an arsenal of additional abilities. Now, there are a lot of complications with the concept of big humans already. For one, they will crumble under their own weight. You might have heard of a mathematical principle called the square cube law. This law dictates that whenever any object has a proportional increase in size, its new surface area will be proportional to the square of its scaling factor, and its new volume will be proportional to the cube of its scaling factor, hence square cube law. In summary, if an object grows or shrinks in size, its volume will always grow or shrink faster than its surface area. This poses a problem because it means humans that are 2 times as big will have 4 times the surface area, including the cross-section of their bones and muscles, but have 8 times the volume and therefore weight. This also means that you're effectively putting twice as much stress on your bones and muscles. The Attack Titan is 15 meters tall and is morphologically close to the body of a normal human. If you consider the average German male has a height of 1.8 meters and a mass of 88.7 kilograms, that means the Attack Titan is about 8.3 times the size and would weigh around a massive 51 tons, which is 6 times heavier than the Tyrannosaurus Rex and a third as heavy as the Statue of Liberty. Because the Attack Titan's volume grows faster than its surface areas, his bones would need to withstand 8 times the pressure from his body weight. And even though the bones are now 8 times the size, they are not necessarily 8 times the strength. So it'd be exceedingly easy to break them if they haven't already crumbled just from standing upright. This is partly why, although Titans pack one hell of a punch, their bodies are relatively fragile. The tallest human ever recorded is 2.72 meters tall and had to use a stick and leg braces to even stand up. Incidentally, this is also why larger and heavier land animals have stumpy legs, and smaller and lighter land animals have thin legs. Larger animals have more body weight relative to their surface area, so they need a bigger surface area on their feet to reduce the pressure their body weight is exerting on their legs. Actually, if you notice, the leg of Colossal Titans are also stumpy for the same reason. Anyway, keep in mind, all this is only if the density of a Titan's body is the same as a normal human's. It isn't.
どの巨人もそう。切断した腕はその質量にあるべき重量には到底達していなかった。
The density of a human body is, on average, almost the same as the density of water. Even if Titans were only 1/10 as dense, the Attack Titan would still weigh 5 tons. But more worryingly, this huge decrease in density would make him especially prone to strong wind, and he will feel literally a bit floatier because he is now much closer to the density of the air around him. So this doesn't seem to be the case. Now, we've only been talking about the Attack Titan, but this really applies to all Titans of all sizes, and regardless of whether or not they're one of the 9. The biggest of the 9, the Colossal Titan, is 60 meters tall, and although he doesn't share the same overall shape as a normal person, if he does, he would be roughly 33.3 times the size and would weigh around a whopping 3.3 kilotons, which is 30 times heavier than the largest known animals to have ever lived on Earth, and about a third as heavy as the Eiffel Tower. The colossal titan could literally sink in soil. It goes without saying that if their bones still have the same structural makeup as that of a normal human, then there's absolutely zero chance a colossal titan would be able to stand up. The fact that they can means titans' bones and muscles really do become stronger along with their scale. We won't be discussing how titans are able to re-engineer their bodies to do this, so I leave that to you guys if you want. Also, titans would be tremendously slow, well, relative to their size. Using something called the fruit number, which is a formula derived from the pendulum, we can estimate that a titan with the same body proportions as a normal human, but 8.3 times bigger, will have a walking speed that's only 2.9 times faster than a normal human. This means that although he covers more ground due to his longer legs, the attack titan would look like he's walking at 34.7% speed. This effect is greatly exaggerated for the colossal titan, which would look like he's walking at 27.4% speed. Keep in mind that this phenomenon doesn't just apply to walking, but pretty much any movement they do will carry a lot of momentum, but because of their mass, will appear to be significantly slow. Not only that, their reaction time would be substantially slower because their nerves will have to cover way more ground to travel to and from the brain while still having the same nerve impulse rate of up to 120 meters a second. That might mean that Titan shifters may experience the world around them as though everything is in fast forward. We know this isn't necessarily the case though. Yes, they move slightly slower, but they don't seem to be that slow, and their reflexes don't seem immensely handicapped, which means that their nerve conduction velocity is much faster than a normal human, and possibly they're able to move their body quicker than a normal human could relative to their size. Again, I leave all this to you doctors and biologists out there. Also, it would be difficult for them to communicate because their throat's resonant cavity is now much bigger and their pitch would go down by their scaling factor. The attack titan will talk at only 10 to 19 Hz, which is 1 Hz short of the human hearing range, so you wouldn't even be able to hear him at all. In the story though, you can hear them, so in all likelihood, their voice boxes do not scale and are significantly stronger, or more likely, they have slightly different anatomy or means of creating sound that have much higher amplitude but are still within the human audible frequency range. Now, let's talk about the sheer amount of energy Titan bodies need to function right after today's sponsor. I'm kidding, I don't have a sponsor, but I do have a like button, so don't forget to click on that if you like this video and subscribe to see more weeb science. Alright, back to energy. A 2012 nutrition report said the average German male consumes around 2,250 calories a day. What about a German 15-meter tall male? Enter the Kieber law, which states that the metabolism of a creature is proportional to its body weight to the 0.75th power. Using the data we already have, the attack titan would need to consume more than 265,000 calories per day to maintain their body weight, meaning they would have to eat 118 times as much as a normal person would each meal. The colossal titan, on the other hand, consumes an otherworldly 6 million calories per day, which means they would need to eat 2 people's worth of daily food intake every single minute. Keep in mind that these are conservative estimates, as in they are calorie intakes under normal conditions. These titans go out of their way to put their bodies under extreme stress and intense physical activity, so the numbers might be 1.2 to 1.5 times the value. Now, calorie is a unit of energy, which in SI is measured in joules. let's talk a bit about energy, shall we? In physics, energy is the capacity to do work, and it has various forms like thermal, kinetic, potential, electrical, and many others. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change from one form to another, otherwise known as the conservation of energy. Eating 2000 calories a day means your digestive system is changing 8.4 megajoules worth of energy from the chemical bonds in your food and changing them to chemical storage units in your body. On a daily basis, this same amount of energy is lost through heat and kinetic energy as your organs and entire body move to do various things like breathing or punching another titan in the face. When you punch someone really hard, on average, you are withdrawing about 300 joules of energy from your body to fuel the motion of your muscles. This energy is then dissipated to the other person's face, instantly transferring a lot of this energy to their head and therefore causing
a lot of damage.
Now, combining the formulas for the fruit number and kinetic energy, the Attack Titan's punch would be traveling at least 45 miles an hour, twice as fast as Usain Bolt, and probably carry at least 1.4 megajoules of kinetic energy, roughly the same amount carried by a speeding pickup truck in the highway. Don't forget that in addition to being trained soldiers who can probably punch faster than you or me, we've been shown that they're able to move faster than this. And since the energy scales to the square of their punching velocity, it's likely it'd be more like a speeding semi-truck, maybe even an aircraft. Titan hardening will not increase this energy, but it will make for a literally harder punch. This has to do with impulse, but I won't be discussing about that too much here. Basically, for the same amount of energy, hardening the surface of the impact will reduce any cushioning effect from the collision, therefore increasing the rate at which the energy is dissipated from the fist to the face, right? Like a reverse airbag. By the way, in physics, this rate of energy transfer is called power, measured in watts. Again, these things apply to all forms of physical attacks for all titans. On another note, I said that most of our daily calorie intake is lost through kinetic energy and heat because we're warm-blooded animals. It's very difficult to calculate just how much energy goes into generating heat, but the fact that Eren now has 580 times the volume but only 70 times the surface area of his skin means he will dissipate heat to the environment much less effectively. This is good for staying warm in the cold, but tremendously bad for hot environments and doing intense physical activities where he has to rapidly evaporate or sweat the heat away. This means his body would get hot very fast if it isn't hot already, and his skin would be scorching. This is probably why titans look like they're always steaming even though they're not decomposing. Speaking of decomposing, titans completely disappear when they die, leaving behind only the shifter inside. In fact, titans seem to completely spawn out of nothing. If we're to believe energy is conserved, where did all this energy come from, and where do they go? Well, Time, it's an anime, so the first law of thermodynamics doesn't really apply. Maybe, but let's give it a chance. Spawning a titan comes with a flash of light and a bolt of lightning. Not sure if this only applies to titan shifters, but let's say it applies to everyone. It seems like all this energy really comes from this jolt of electricity in the sky. A lightning strike carries around 1 to 10 billion joules of electrical energy. For the record, this energy is dissipated in under a millisecond. So the power is way too high for any of our current technology to harness and store, assuming we also have batteries big enough to contain this huge amount of energy. But alas, all this energy is going into creating a 15-meter tall man. How many joules does it take to even create a titan anyway? Well, everything in the universe is made of energy, even matter. Thanks to this underground physics formula that I'm sure not a lot of people know about, we know that 1 kilogram of matter contains around 90 petajoules of energy. To create the Attack Titan out of pure energy, you'd need 4.6 trillion joules of energy, which is more than 7,000 years worth of our entire world's current annual energy output, and 460 trillion lightning strikes at least. And you have to keep in mind, a lot of energy in the process is lost through light, heat, sound, possibly other less apparent ways. Another problem is, how do you make energy into matter? The universe allows energy to become matter so long as the same amount of antimatter is created. This is a discussion from another time, but basically we've been able to do exactly that, but in small and isolated environments, and the results are very unsustainable. The Attack Titan is entirely matter, so where's all the antimatter? In fact, where did the 300 zetajoules of energy come from? Well, that, my friend, is where the paths come into play. Cool. The total amount of energy in the universe is fixed, but in Attack on Titan, we're dealing with two places in two different spacetimes. I'm inclined to believe all this energy is simply moved from one place to the other, and the lightning bolt is just somewhat of a side effect. After spawning a Titan, the antimatter is simply isolated to another third place we don't know of, maybe even back to the paths, since we know transporting energy between these spaces are within the realm of possibility. When a Titan dies, their body breaks down to smaller particles that are easy to transport as they radiate heat, after which all this matter is gradually returned to the paths where they can safely reassemble with the antimatter and return to energy without blowing up the entire planet. Look, I'm sure there are a lot of things wrong with this concept, but this is the best way to explain it. In fact, they probably don't even need to make antimatter and just use all the matter that Ymir has prepared for them. Simply by moving all this sand to the quote-unquote material world and creating a whole body out of the same atoms. Now, since we've introduced paths into the mix, I could discuss about how an eternity in the paths could feel like an instant in Shiganshina. As per Einstein's theory of general relativity, gravitational spacetime dilation is manifested in accelerated frames of reference. The paths, wherever they are in space, is simply experiencing much stronger gravitational pull from another celestial body than the Earth equivalent where Eldia is. And so a clock in the paths would run significantly slower. You've seen this concept in Miller's Planet and Gargantua from Interstellar.
Go! 7 years per hour here.
It'd have to be an absurd amount of gravity though. As to moving between these two frames of reference, they could be using a wormhole, a shortcut in the fabric of space-time. You also see wormholes explored in science fiction media often, and I kinda don't want to spend 30 more minutes expanding on this, so maybe it's time to wrap things up here before I go on a huge tangent. Bottom line is, Titans aren't simply humans scaled up. Their bodies and muscles are physically stronger, they move faster, they have quicker reflexes, and their anatomy would have to be slightly different overall to compensate for their size. Titans can pack a lot of energy into their punches through their sheer mass, but they're putting a lot of stress on their body and they suck at dissipating heat. Except the Colossal Titan, which is known to expend the mass of their tissue to generate ungodly amounts of heat. I'm sure there are a lot of questions I haven't covered. Titans don't eat, so where does all their energy come from? There have been pure Titans who are hundreds of years old, even Peak can stay in Titan form for months on end. If they get energy from the sun, how does their photosynthesis work? How do Titans biologically manifest their abilities? How does the Warhammer Titan conjure hardening crystals at will? How does the healing factor work? How does Reiner shift his consciousness? And how the hell can the Attack Titan see into the future? As you might have guessed, these questions are mostly not meant to be answered, because in the grand scheme of things, they are only vehicles for good storytelling, and that's what matters. Even so, they're still pretty fun to think about.
最高にたぎるやつをだよ。
許可については
Fantasy still requires a degree of logical consistency, and that's what science is good at. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you like it, dislike it if you don't, subscribe for more weeb science, and see you next time.